Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Sports IQ, Larry Smith here. Glad you're with us on a Wednesday. Another big show coming up. Got a lot of football we're talking about in a couple of minutes. Zac Neel joining us to talk about the Oregon Ducks. Trying to, just get a couple of wins here. Doesn't look like you're going to be headed to Indianapolis for the conference championship. Doesn't matter. Get a couple of wins, and you're solid for the college football playoff. We've got that coming up. Also, Olin Buchanan, a friend from Texas A&M, the insider. We'll get to talk about the Aggies. How they came back last week to stay undefeated, and now a couple of games as they look to get into the SEC championship game and possibly get a bye in the college football playoff. What a season out there in College Station. Also, our friend Matt Stevens from IlliniGuys talking about a few things. He had a great piece that he wrote about the college football playoff rankings, how it's much ado about nothing. He's got some interesting thoughts as always. We've had him on the show before. And also a big game tonight in college basketball. Number 8 Illinois taking on 11th ranked Alabama in Chicago. Big night for basketball fans last night. Both the pro and college version had plenty of action in Utah. LeBron James putting his name again in the record book, becoming the first player in NBA history to appear in 23 seasons. When he started for the Lakers against the Jazz, he had been tied with Vince Carter at 22 seasons in the NBA. LeBron playing 30 minutes, scoring 11 points, dishing out 12 assists. How about that? You come off, you've been injured, you come right back with a double-double. Lakers offense, though, powered mostly by Luka Doncic. 37 points, Austin Reeves, 26. Hey, LA has won 3 in a row, 140-126 over Utah. The Pistons on fire right now. 11 straight wins, 120-112 over Atlanta. Cade Cunningham had 25 points. Jalen Duren had 24 to lead the way. San Antonio had to travel to Memphis without superstar Victor Wembanyama. No problem, Spurs fans. De'Aaron Fox had 26, Harrison Barnes 23. Spurs get the 111-101 win. Meanwhile, the college kids invading Madison Square Garden for a doubleheader. Game 1, all Michigan State. They cruised over Kentucky 83-66. Jackson Kohler with 20 points. Kurt Hing hit 3 of Michigan State's season-high 11 three-pointers on the way to scoring a career-best 15 points. Spartans or the Wildcats in Game 1 of the annual Champions Classic. UK right now 0-2 in the regular season here against ranked teams as they fall. Number 12 Wildcats fall to number 17 Michigan State. In the nightcap, Duke freshman Cam Boozer announced his presence with authority. 18 points, 10 rebounds. His twin brother Caden had a couple of big second-half baskets. 5th-ranked Duke over 24th-ranked Kansas, 78-66. On the ladies' side, Michigan put 6 players in double figures as they cruise to the 120-50 win over Binghamton. Yes, the Lady Wolverines 4-0 on the young season with an average margin of victory of 49.5 points. However, they'll be tested Friday when they play number 1 UConn on their campus in stores. College football playoff rankings coming out last night. No change at the top. Ohio State number 1, Indiana 2, Texas A&M 3. Georgia, thanks to that impressive win over Texas, jumps to number 4 with Big 12 leader Texas Tech rounding out the top 5. Ole Miss and Oregon each moving up a spot to 6 and 7, 6-7, 6-7. Yeah, I did that. Oklahoma, by virtue of the win over Alabama, comes in at number 8. Notre Dame is 9. Bama falls all the way down to 10. BYU is 11, Utah 12, Miami up to 13 in this latest poll. All right, producer Tony has our first guest.
Well, thanks, Larry. And, one of the games that everybody's keeping their eye on, considering the SEC is basically taking the week off for a change this week, out west, we have got a huge matchup. And it's funny to say that. Out west in the Big Ten, we have a huge matchup. Oregon taking on the USC Trojans, I guess year 2. I still haven't quite gotten used to it. But we want to welcome in our old friend, Zac Neel. He is the Oregon Ducks beat writer for USA Today. Zac, thank you so much for taking time to join us.
Absolutely. My pleasure. I don't know when we're going to get used to that out west in the Big Ten. It's still not normal here out in Eugene either.
It doesn't. It just doesn't roll off the tongue. It just doesn't sound right. But it is what it is. And it's an exciting game. It's one of the big games in the Big Ten of all season coming up here. And it's got a lot of meaning for both of these squads, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is one. I mean, obviously, when it was the Pac-12 era, this was one of the biggest games of the year. Then this is a good rivalry out on the West Coast. I think that might be even strengthened now that they're in the Big Ten too, 2 of the West Coast teams. So Yeah, these are two of the predominant brands on the West Coast, and this year they're two of the best teams in the Big Ten as well. So there are real college football playoff hopes on the line for both teams here. It should be a really fun one.
Going into the game, Oregon your offense has really done a great job of spreading the ball around. You look at the run game, and you've got three guys that all have over 300 yards rushing and a number of touchdowns. You look at the passing game, and Dante Moore is spreading the ball around. There's, I think, 4 guys with over 20 catches and 2 just under 20 catches so far this season. How has it been? Has that been kind of the mindset coming in that we are going to use everybody and spread this ball around as much as we can?
Yeah, this is a team and a roster that is just really deep. It's a very talented roster. I mean, Dan Lanning is recruited as well as anyone, both from the high school level and in the transfer portal over the past few years. So it's not a surprise that they have this much talent. Going into the year, one of the questions was, how are you going to feed everyone? There's only one ball to go around and this many good guys. Over the past couple of weeks, you've seen the benefit of that, though, because Oregon's been dealing with some injuries. They've been without their 2 or 3 best pass catchers over the past 2 weeks. And, this past week, how did Dante Moore answer? He threw a career high in yards and broke the Oregon Ducks record for completion percentage in a single game, completing 90% of his passes. And that was without their 2 best receivers on the field. So Oregon has an ability to shift their personnel. They're going from 11 personnel to 12, 13, 14. They're moving multiple tight ends, multiple running backs, 21 personnel. Like, they're kind of finding different ways to beat you. Credit to Will Stein. He's doing a fantastic job as the offensive coordinator. It does not seem like a fun job to be an opposing defensive coordinator and try and figure out exactly how to match up, how to scheme a defense to find these different ways to beat this offense.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, most defensive coordinators come in and going, okay, I have to take one thing away so that I can try to be able to deal with the other thing. But with Oregon, you can't really look and say, who am I going to, if I take away one, they're just going to go here. If I take away that, they're going to go here. So it makes it really difficult for a defense to kind of set up. You almost have to play, I don't want to say more of a base defense, but more of a regular defense, right?
Yeah, I think so. And it gets even tougher when you consider that this offensive line is playing as one of the best in the nation. They are a semifinalist for the Joe Moore Award. They are doing an incredible job not only in the run game, but in the pass game as well, keeping Dante Moore relatively clean. It was fun this past week. I mean, the 2 games before this last one against Minnesota, Oregon played in a torrential downpour. So it kind of, they had to lean heavily on the run game, kind of just play some of that ground and pound Big Ten football. This past week, it was actually a dry November day in Eugene, which is pretty rare here. And they got to throw it a little bit. And so you got to see Dante Moore open it up a little bit. So it's been fun to see how this team can play in different weathers, how they can kind of morph themselves and find different ways to win.
You've seen the last few iterations of the great Oregon quarterbacks covering this team. Where would you say that Dante Moore ranks in with these guys at this point of this season?
He's not up there yet with the likes of, a Bo Nix or a Dylan Gabriel. It's because he's still young. I think that his ceiling is higher than any of them, though. He's shown that he can make the throws. He's shown that he's got the decision-making aspects to his game where he's not going to put the ball in harm's way. I truly believe that, I mean, he's going to stay next year. I think I've got it on good authority that he's not going to go into the NFL draft this year. So next year, I think that he will be, leading that Heisman campaign, one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. He's a very, very talented player, has all of the tools, has an incredible arm. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. He just needs more reps. It's unfair to put him with Justin Herberts or the Darren Thomases or Bo Nix of the game because he hasn't done it yet. But he's only started, 10 games with the Ducks? So, yeah, we need to see a little bit more, but his ceiling is as high, if not higher than any of them.
Watching the Oregon football team from afar, I only get to see them on TV when I'm watching. But when I see that sideline, I see a lot of camaraderie. I see a close-knit bunch. I see a group that really gets along and plays for each other.
Absolutely. That's one of Dan Lanning's core tenets is connection. I mean, he wants this team to be super connected to each other, a brotherhood. They've got a saying, FEBU, FEBU, which is quote unquote, forget everyone but us. Like they want to tune out all of the outside noise and make sure that they only care about what each other thinks. And they want to be very close and make sure that they're playing for each other on Saturdays. So that's exactly, I think that shows up in these late season games when you are missing some starters, you're missing some guys, you're still that close with the second string, the third string. You feel comfortable going out there on Saturday and playing with them.
Going into USC and taking a look at that team now, they have really stepped up the game in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Had the setback at Notre Dame, but still played a really good football game that day. What issues do they present offensively for Oregon?
I mean, that wide receiver core is as good as you will find anywhere in the nation. I know that Oregon is going to have their hands full with Mekhi Lemon. Just trying to stop him is hard on anyone. Fortunately, Oregon does have the number one passing defense in the nation. Like, they've got a couple of several cornerbacks who are as good as anyone. One, a true freshman, Brandon Finney, who not only a true freshman All-American, but maybe an All-American. And just a really good secondary. So I think that will be the matchup of the day to follow. Oregon's defense, their secondary against USC's passing offense. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
And Oregon has been able this year to put pressure on quarterbacks when they needed to. Is it going to be a factor of trying to blitz USC a little more or playing coverage and hope you can get home with 4?
That's going to be interesting to see because Oregon, fans have been frustrated that Oregon has not had a ton of sacks this year. That's because you look at the opposing team's time to throw. They're getting the ball out super quick against Oregon just because they know that they have to. USC holds onto the ball a little bit longer. Jaden Mayava a little bit longer. So I think that they'll bring a little bit of pressure, but you don't want to bring too much because you got to have people in the secondary as well.
Now, the game has a lot of meaning in the Big Ten, but it also has a big implication nationally. Both teams, USC, I don't think at this point can afford another loss if they have a hope of making the playoffs. And Oregon only has the one loss to Indiana, but does a second loss really hurt them, do you think?
A second loss makes it very, I think people would get nervous here in Eugene for sure. Just because the strength of schedule, the wins have not been amazing so far. And of course, you can only beat the teams on your schedule. So wins against Iowa were great. If you can beat a ranked USC team, then you can beat Washington. Obviously, you finish the year with one loss, you're good, you're in. If they lose another game, it gets a little bit dicey. So I think this is a must-win game for both teams.
When you look at Oregon and that stadium, you've told us before the atmosphere. This is a huge game. Mm-hmm. Probably the biggest home game of the season. Fair enough. Well, the Indiana game was probably the biggest home game of the season, would you say? No.
I think the Indiana game, it's that one or this one. Just because Indiana was earlier in the year, I think you had the feeling of wiggle room. You go into this game with no wiggle room, and you've got the rivalry. You haven't seen USC in a little bit. So, I think Oregon fans want this one to be a victory.
That would be I'm really looking forward to sitting down and having the snacks, having some drinks, and watching this football game play out because I think it's going to be a real chess match. Lanning against Lincoln Riley. Who do you think has a little bit of an edge there?
I think Lanning does. That may be a homer pick for me to say as an Oregon beat reporter, but he's just shown an ability to win in so many different ways as a head coach. He's shown an ability to scheme up things really well defensively. I know they've got one of the best offensive coordinators in the nation in Will Stein. I like the track record he's got. He's lost 7 games in his tenure with Oregon. I don't think it's going to be 8 this week, but I think it's going to be a really good matchup.
We've talked to a number of beat reporters out there with the Texas programs, with the Ole Miss program, with a couple of other programs where there's so many coaching openings this year at this time of year, something we have not seen in college football in recent memory, to have this many high profile openings. Lanning's name has come up a couple of times at different places. Do you think that's caused any kind of distraction among that Oregon team, or has he kind of put that all to rest?
No, I think he's done a good job of putting that all to rest. I don't think he's leaving anytime soon. He's said that he wants to be the winningest coach in Oregon history, which if he were to go undefeated for the next 5 years, he still wouldn't get there. So that's definitely not a distraction in the program. I think everyone knows that he's here to stay for at least the next 5 to 10 years. After that, who knows whether the NFL comes knocking or what happens then. But right now, that's not what they're focused on. They're worried about USC and this season and everything else. Like I said, FEBU, they don't care about it.
You've covered college football for quite a while now, and we've got a lot of 1-loss, 2-loss teams still jockeying for that position. In your mind, is that making college football that much more interesting this late in the season? Know that you've got all these teams either jockeying for a position inside the playoff or still trying to make sure that they are being thought of come selection day for the playoff.
Yeah, I think it's been a great development in college football. I mean, go to even 2 years ago with the 4-team playoff, and a team like USC is out of it. They're trying to maybe get into a New Year's Six game or get into a high bowl game, but they're not thinking about the playoff because they already have 2 losses and they know that another one would knock them out of it. So, or, keep them out of it. So, yeah, I think that's been a great development in the sport. I know there are pros and cons to the playoff and the seeding and the automatic bids, all of that stuff. Yeah, nothing's perfect, but I think the 12-team playoff has been a major, improvement.
And we've seen that, these bigger conferences, it's so hard to get a balanced schedule. You look at a schedule like Alabama, they've played a number of ranked teams. You look at some other people that are ranked highly that have 1 loss, they haven't played quite so many ranked teams. It's just they play whoever they play and whoever the, God set before them, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does that play out in your mind as far as the seeding pattern? Should the committee take a look more at those schedules to see how that strength of schedule plays out?
I think so. When what's really important is, we've got, hindsight is 2020, and it's funny to see how a team like Oregon, who goes into Penn State and beats the number 2 team in the nation, that loss is now looked that win is now looked kind of as a bad win because Penn State has fallen apart since then. But was Penn State a bad team when that game took place? I don't think so. James Franklin was there. Their starting quarterback was still there. It was one of the best atmospheres in all of college football. The same goes with Iowa. I mean, Oregon beat a ranked Iowa team on the road, and now Iowa's lost 2 straight, and they're no longer ranked. So Oregon, once again, doesn't have a ranked team. That win does not look as good as it did at the time. We have to kind of decide how we want to consider ranked wins. I think the committee probably does a better job of this than the general college football fan base, because I don't think that, well, depending on where you look, the college football fan base may be smarter in some different areas than others. So it's just, we're all fanatics at the end, so can't blame them. But as long as the committee understands what a good win is and can understand the rankings, I think that's what matters.
Give me your opinion as we head into the game Saturday. Give me 2 things you want to see from Oregon to know it's going to be a good day.
First, you got to look at the defensive secondary and make sure that they're just holding up against the pass. They don't have to completely shut it down because, I don't know that anyone in the nation could completely shut down USC's passing game, but at least not get beat a ton and just give up a ton of points. And then I'm looking at Dante Moore. Once again, he's been very cool, calm, and collected, especially in dry weather. This should be another dry game in Eugene. So I think that Oregon should have the ability to score some points on USC's defense. They've got a relatively average defense compared to their very good offense. So this should be a relatively high-scoring game, but I think if Oregon's passing game and rushing game can get going and the defensive secondary can step up, they should walk away with a win.
Zac Neel, he is the USA Today beat writer for the Oregon Ducks. Thank you so much. Appreciate you taking some time, and enjoy that game on Saturday.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anytime.
We will be back on the Sports IQ after a quick timeout.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Welcome back here to the show. We were talking about obviously the college football rankings and the coaching, everything else, and great story on IlliniGuys.com and Matt Stevens talking about how these rankings right now, we all get geeked for it, but it really doesn't matter because it's almost like in August getting excited because your team is number 3 in the nation. And look, folks, we know how that turned out this year, right? Those teams are gone, except for Ohio State. Everyone else is gone, replaced by other teams. Anyway, great story. And we want to bring in Matt Stevens, who's the IlliniGuys football writer and analyst for the website. Matt, good to have you back on the show again. A couple of things we want to talk about. But first off, college football rankings coming out last night. Listen, it's nice to talk about. At least last time was just during the halftime. It wasn't like a whole hour show or whatever. But this is a lot of, you could just release this just like the AP and the coaches poll and be done. There's no need to do a show about this.
Or you could not do it at all. Like that's my you know what I mean? Like that honestly is my argument is like we could do this like the NCAA tournament and not do it at all until like we release the actual bracket. Like the only thing that's beneficial, I guess, and it's been pointed out to me, I guess, on the IlliniGuys message board is, Illinois will play at Wisconsin this weekend with a number by its name because the college football rankings are the top 25 is what everybody uses now at this point of the year. So Illinois is not in the AP poll. They're not in the coaches poll, but they will play with a number by their name. And I guess from a program perspective, that does mean something. Like they're going to play with the number 21 by their name. But the content creation that Disney, ABC, and ESPN has created with this weekly show is just borderline ridiculous in the sense of I applaud them because they've gotten themselves from Tuesday night all the way to Saturday morning in a way by doing these, by creating content for themselves and for others because they aggregate it. All the other networks need to aggregate what these are because we don't have anything to talk about college football wise from Tuesday night all the way to Saturday morning. And so they have figured out a way to do that. But yeah, I think if you asked anybody in Tallahassee right now, like what they think of the college football rankings, like before the final ones, they'll tell you we got duped. Like in 2023, we got duped. So I kind of just roll my eyes and go like, just get me to the last one and then like show me the bracket, right? Because I can prove how they don't matter right now, okay? Because literally the way that they have ranked, the top 25 last night on Tuesday night, okay? Miami gets the ACC auto bid. Miami can't win the ACC auto bid because every tiebreaker doesn't allow them to play in the ACC championship game. So like it's all if the season ended today, but guess what? The season doesn't end today, and Miami doesn't have any tiebreakers in its own conference to win its own conference to order to get into the bracket that ESPN is projecting that Miami's going to be in right now. So that is the content creation game that Disney and ESPN and ABC have created, and I applaud them for it. But I'll just check out until the last one, the day after the championship games, and see where we stand.
Yeah. Well, they're the master of getting clicks. I mean, you
Absolutely.
Can't go to the website without seeing 8 different Stephen A. clips, him screaming about something that you probably didn't even realize was an issue.
Nope.
So and Joe Lunardi does it all season. I mean, he'll put brackets out over the years. I'm like, and I really follow this stuff very closely. The college, just like basketball, like you do football, and I'm like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. Why is that team a 9 seed? That doesn't make any sense. But it creates clicks, it creates conversation, which generates revenue.
And I've talked to Joe about that. And if his stuff had actually been part of the daily lexicon of how we go about like ranking teams throughout the regular season, he said he would have had reservations about doing it. Like it's just his projections really don't matter throughout the course of a college basketball season. And he will admittedly recognize that and tell you that. The problem I have is that like these rankings do have some significance because like I just said, Illinois is going to have a number by their name. Otherwise they just wouldn't. And so that's great for Illinois, but it doesn't give you an indication as to where Illinois is going to fall at the end of the year, because when we get to all of the data points, Illinois is going to have a completely different resume in 2 weeks than they have right now.
Yeah. There's no question about that. By the way, Lunardi lost me when years ago he said SMU was a lock in the final weekend. And even though in my numbers they were not, and they missed the tournament. And ever since that, I can't take them seriously. But anyway, it's another story. I want to stay on point because we're short on time. Sure. Coaching stuff. You spent a lot of time in the SEC. Whispers earlier about Brett Bielema leaving. Obviously, you said in your writing that he has a contract that he can't take another Big Ten job. So stop it with the Penn State stuff. Leaving that aside, what is your take on all the SEC coaching moves? Florida, LSU, obviously Lane Kiffin his name is hot. What's your take on what's going on and what we're about to walk into here the next few weeks?
The calendar sucks, Larry. I mean, no, and I'm being serious. Like,
Yeah.
I go. Excuse me. I go to AFCA, the American Football Coaches Association meetings when I can, the annual meetings when I can. This year they're in Charlotte in January. The number one complaint of every coach, no matter what division they're in, but especially if they're in the FBS or even in the FCS, the recruiting calendar sucks. And so that's why you're seeing James Franklin get hired on November 17th, which never would have happened. That's why you're seeing 14 coaches at the power level get fired like way before Halloween, which never happened before. Like everybody feels like they've got to get to a point where they're prepared to get to early December, because that's the point now in which kids are going to sign, and then you got to get you got to get everything ready for the portal. And that's why you're seeing a devaluation of one of the best regular seasons that Ole Miss has ever had since segregation. Because the fact that their head coach has to decide whether or not he wants to stay there or leave a playoff team. And it's different. And I had somebody tell me this. It's the same thing that Will Wade did when he was at McNeese and he told everybody, I'm leaving for North Carolina State. No, it's not, because he let everybody know this is what I'm doing, but I'm going to finish the year at McNeese. Lane, if he wants to go to Florida or he wants to go to LSU, doesn't have that opportunity, because you have to start recruiting. Quite frankly, Lane's going to have to start recruiting players probably on his own LSU or on his own Ole Miss roster to go with him wherever he wants to go. And also, there's this silliness that happens, and it's gotten crazy. The calendar has made everybody kind of go nuts in the sense of in the media, because what was reported the other day was, I hate to say it this way, but whoever, the person that reported, Lane Kiffin and the conversations he's having with Ole Miss just does not understand what the word ultimatum means. Larry, you are my boss at IlliniGuys. If you tell me something has to happen by 5:00, and that's an ultimatum, because the next words out of my mouth are going to be, or what? If I can't do it, I'm going to be like, Larry, or what happens? And if you tell me my employment is done, that is an ultimatum, and it probably will get done. But if you write a story that says Lane Kiffin's been given an ultimatum by Keith Carter, the athletic director at Ole Miss, and it's not clear as to what happens after the deadline of the ultimatum passes, that's not an ultimatum. That's we'd really like to know an answer. And sure enough, there are 3 schools that really would like to know the answer. But the issue has always been, and I've said this before, and it had happened 2 years ago when Auburn was convinced that Lane Kiffin was going to come and coach their football team. Lane's going to make this about Lane until Jimmy Sexton's going to make it about Lane until the absolute moment that they can't make it about Lane anymore. And Ole Miss knew that when they signed up with Lane Kiffin and all of those things. I just find it interesting that if you changed the calendar and you made it so that, and I'm spitballing here, but if you made it so that the recruiting calendar was basically when every other college student basically decides exactly when they want to go to school, instead of December or January. I didn't know in December or January, of my senior year, where I was going to go to school. I didn't. So if you do that, I think a lot of college coaches would be able to take vacations. They'd be able to plan things, and the season would look a lot like a professional sports off season. Right now, you don't have that in college, and you're devaluing not only your regular season, but your postseason by this craziness of a recruiting calendar that just makes no sense, because you're trying to make sure that everybody in the country has an equal opportunity to be able to recruit people when the weather is nice. And I'm just telling you, that's not the way that life works. So they've got to figure out this recruiting calendar.
I agree. I got to jump in. I got about 45 seconds. Illinois, Alabama tonight, big basketball matchup. Illinois, are they healthy? How good are they right now?
I don't know if they're healthy. I mean, I don't know if Tomislav Ivicic is going to play. I don't know if Mihailo Petrovic is going to play. But I do know that Illinois has already beaten a top 15 team in their building without some of their key pieces, because Andrei Stojakovic is that good of an instant offense transfer. And Kylan Boswell might be one of the best perimeter defenders in the country. And he's going to have to be against Alabama because of the way that they shoot it and the way that, Nate Oates coaches his perimeter guys. But I do think Illinois' got a shot with who they've got, even if Ivicic and Petrovic don't play. I think it's a really, really tough matchup if Alabama can get the score up into the 90s and up into 100. You saw last year when they went to Birmingham and Alabama put up 100 on them. I think Illinois is going to have to play a lot better perimeter defense than they did the year before. But I do think that there's a window of how they played against Texas Tech that can allow Illinois to win that basketball game.
Yeah, I was really surprised at the voters. Both polls put them from 14th up to 8th, jumped them 6 spots after that win. Big win at home over Texas Tech. And JT Toppin, 35 points. He's a monster. Certainly, you see why he's an All-American. But they did that without Ivisic, without Petrovic, and Stojakovic coming out the bench, haven't played much before. He was instant offense. It's a fun team to watch, and clearly, you know me in early season polls, I don't get into them. I'm like, you know what? It's more about respect. Which program do I respect right now? Mm-hmm. Coach do I respect? And I think that's the thing. It shows respect, I think, for Brad Underwood more than anything else. By the way, Illinois has never beaten 2 ranked teams in November. They already have one at Texas Tech. They've got the shot tonight against Alabama. And next week, Black Friday, a big matchup in Madison Square Garden against UConn. Hey, Matt, we got to leave it there. Appreciate your time as always. Big game this weekend. Enjoy your time up in Wisconsin.
I appreciate it, Larry. Have a good one.
All right, thanks, man. Matt Stevens, once again, he's the football writer and analyst for IlliniGuys.com. And as we get a chance to work together, full disclosure, always good to do that. Much more to come here at the Sports IQ. Stay with us.
What's the best way to get rid of a timeshare that you don't want? Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline. We're a group of attorneys that help customers legally exit their timeshares. It's an easy process. We guarantee results or you pay nothing. Exit your timeshare today. Call now.
800-715-6093. 800-715-6093. That's 800-715-6093.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Hey, some big news here. We guys got a quick call. Olin's not going to be able to join us. He got pulled away for something, so we'll catch up with him later on. Listen, he's a great friend of the show. Appreciate his time, and he sends regrets to us, but he'll come back on later on, and we'll talk about the Aggies with him. Tony, want to talk about a couple of things. First off, this just happening today. Nebraska recruiting. What's going on there? Dylan Raiola, who's the younger brother of the starting quarterback there, who was just injured, 3-star quarterback out of Buford, Georgia. He just decommitted from Nebraska. One of the top quarterback prospects in the 2026 class was going to come in. Now, here's the big question on this. What's going on in Nebraska? Matt Rule, only 9 commits in this class. I know transfer portal that kind of skews the numbers here, but still only 9 commits, the lowest in the Big Ten. Maybe is there some feeling that he may be leaving to go to, say, Penn State, or what's going on there, do you think?
I mean, that was really surprising. Look, Dayton Raiola is not on the same level as his brother Dylan, right? He's not rated quite as high. He has led Buford, Georgia, which is one of the top programs in the state of Georgia, if not the entire Southeast, for the last 2 years. Done a really nice job. It could be one of two things, Larry. Either he is figuring that his stock is getting ready to go up and he might be able to get a better offer somewhere, or somebody's telling him that another school wants to offer him. And so he figures he can roll the dice and see where it goes. Or there's a little more fire to the smoke we've heard all about with Rule possibly being interested. He has come out and said and tried to shut down all the rumors. Look, I'm in Nebraska. I'm in Nebraska for a reason. I want to be here. I want to grow this program. He said all the right things. And we know, you and I have been doing this long enough that we know you can say all the right things at all the right times, but somewhere in the back recesses of some back room where some agents are talking to some athletic directors and boosters and other things, that stranger things have happened than a coach coming out and saying, I'm not leaving. Oh, by the way, I'm leaving.
Yeah, exactly. I should say, by the way, Dayton Raiola, brother Dylan, obviously the starting quarterback, just injured for Nebraska. Want to clean that up. Dayton is his name. As you mentioned, 23 touchdowns over the past 2 seasons. Semifinal appearance last year. They'll be a contender for a state title again this year. They're one of the great powers there, like you said, in Georgia. But yeah, it's one of those things that just it's interesting. We don't really we watch recruiting. We don't study it. We're not those kind of expert.
stunned to see as you're now just really a couple of weeks away from signing day, and you've only got 9 guys in a class. I mean, that's small, and I'm with you. That it does smell like there's something else happening, not just with this, but across the board, kind of crazy. Another story we've been following quite a bit. The WNBA, they extended their deadline of the collective bargaining agreement to the end of this month, a 30-day extension. And ESPN now reporting finally, Tony, some numbers that really, and there have been numbers been bannered about. This is the first numbers been made public that ESPN got a source to agree to. Listen, if these numbers are accurate, it appears the NBA and their parent, the WNBA and their parent, the NBA, they're serious right now. These are some substantial numbers, a huge increase from what they had this past season.
Yeah, when we looked at the numbers earlier before we were doing the show, Larry, we talked about it. You take a look, and the numbers that are being bandied about say that they're willing to make the minimum above what was the maximum. The maximum used to be like 416,000 in the league. Now the minimum is going to be like 420,000, and the maximum is going to be 7 figures. It's going to be over $1 million. Now, the good news about that from where I'm sitting is it's not the usual, again, you and I have been around long enough. We've seen these negotiations with labor, and it's usually, here's my offer, take it or leave it. I don't care, until we get to the 11th and a half hour when you might get some movement before a strike or a lockout is about to happen. This seems promising to me because it's not the 11th hour yet. We still have a week to go, and they could always still extend that deadline because the season isn't happening right now. They're not getting ready to open camp on January 1st.
Right.
So to me, this is a promising development.
Yeah.
It seems like decent numbers. I don't know what the WNBA Players Association is thinking, what they had asked for. None of that has been made public yet, but at least I think we're making a step in the right direction to not have a labor stoppage in the WNBA.
Yeah, I agree with you that if this, even let's say, even if the players want more, this is these numbers are substantial. And they're numbers that you and I, as we've talked a lot about this over the past several months. We were hoping you would get to those 7-figure numbers in terms of when you're talking salary at some point in this. Because the maximum salary is woefully inadequate for what these athletes are bringing to the game and their talent. And now that you've got, again, the TV money there, the expansion. I mean, look at Toronto, the moves that they are making right now. Bring in Sandy Brondello, somebody who has 2 rings with 2 franchises, the success that she has. You can say you saw what happened with Golden State. You've got Portland coming in. The teams coming up here in Detroit, Philadelphia, and Cleveland after that. So everything is on the up. It behooves everyone involved to make this happen. And I'm with you. We really thought, again, with the way things were going, that it was going to be a pretty ugly, prolonged situation. But I'm with you. It sounds like there's some good dialogue happening. And I'm with you. Even if they can't get it done here in the next 11 days, to extend it may not be. It would be a good thing if they extend it again. If you actually have some movement and you need more time to kind of work through some numbers and iron things out.
Yeah, I mean, this gives at least a starting jump-off point for the league to come back, or the Players Association to come back and say, okay, that's your offer. What do you think about this? Is there any more wiggle room? Can we up this to this? Can we do this? Can we do that? Maybe there's other things in that provisions that they're looking at, something about, leave pay or things along those lines that these athletes would be interested in, that they can work out and negotiate with, because it's not always just salary numbers, right, that drive these labor negotiations. It's the other little things that go into what makes up a collective bargaining agreement that they're always looking at. What we see in the media is always just the big picture numbers, but there's a lot of little things going on that happen as well, So I think it ought to be interesting to see when it happens, when we get this response from the Players Association and what their numbers look like to keep this dialogue going. Because like you said, they're not playing. We're not ready to start the training camp. So they have time to make it happen without a work stoppage. Because you know what happens if they announce a work stoppage? Everybody leaves the bargaining table and they don't think about it again until right before the league gets going.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting thing, by the way, I just noticed as I'm on ESPN about to read through more on this story. Here's what the WNBA is in the sports lexicon. Their season ended more than a month ago. They're still right there. The tab right there in the main timeline, if you will, right there at the top of the page, along right at the end of NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, NCAA football, NHL, soccer, WNBA, and then more sports. They have not replaced it with, say, men's basketball. I find that interesting. Obviously, they're one of the primary carriers of WNBA games, but still, they haven't taken off their top page yet, which says again, they're still getting good traffic. I think that's huge. I'm with you on this. I just think this is a good thing. By the way, there's also some other stories too, in terms of some teams, some players joining these new leagues. Jewel Lloyd, the latest to join this new Project B. This will be playing overseas during the winter in the WNBA offseason. Alyssa Thomas, also the walking triple-double, the perennial MVP candidate, may never win it just because, you always are going to have an Asia Wilson or an Afisa Collier right now. She has fantastic numbers, but not the big scorer like they are night in, night out. She's also joining as well. So you're getting some big names joining this. And so here's what I'm excited about. If they're making $1 million in the winter and in the summer making another $1 million plus, good for them. That is outstanding, and they deserve that.
Absolutely. They've worked hard. Look, the women's brand of basketball has made not just small steps, but they made leaps and bounds improvement in the last 10 years. The games are exciting. Would I like to see them clean up some of that physical play that kind of detracts from the basketball? Is a beautiful game.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful game when it's played with movement and fluidity and passing and cutting. I didn't like when the NBA had the bad boy era and everything looked like it was being played inside of a phone booth,
right?
And you got more muggings than you had layups. And I don't want to see the WNBA go down that road because they've got the athletes to have this fluid, to have that movement, to have that motion, to make it basketball what basketball is supposed to be. Hopefully they keep that up. And they're going to need to, after this collective bargaining agreement, talk about what they're going to do with the officiating in the WNBA.
Yeah, and that may be part of it too. In terms of you make these full-time refs, et cetera. But you clean that up, it just makes the game so much better and much more fluid. The athletes already they keep getting better every year. The game gets better. Got to clean that part up and be more consistent as well. No question about that. All right, our conversation continues here coming up in just a moment. We talk about the fans, not most of you, but those who just really they go out there out on a limb. Sometimes not their best thing to do. That's next. Welcome back here to the show. We were talking before we went on the air about producer Tony, the message board. I was sharing with you that UK fans, when they beat Purdue, in number one in the nation in an exhibition, the reaction was one, you would have thought they were headed to the Final Four next. And I kept saying, guys, it's an exhibition. It's okay. Now that they've lost, twice to ranked teams, all of a sudden, oh my God, where are we going? And I'm like, people, we're a week away from Thanksgiving. It's just the fans, Tony.
You gotta love fans. And for anybody out there, if you're having kind of a rough day, here's my penicillin, my little, chicken soup for you. Go and read some college football message boards. If you want to have a laugh, man, some of these people, bless their heart, I know they mean well and they're passionate about their team, but oh my God.
Yeah.
It's just, I was reading through some Florida boards and somebody said that Lane Kiffin's family has already bought a house in Gainesville. They've purchased it, paid cash, blah, blah, blah. Done. Now I went over I said, let me go to some LSU boards. Let's see what's going on over there. Well, according to them, he's bought like 20 acres somewhere in Louisiana Somebody said because he wants to build a ranch. I didn't even know they had ranches in Louisiana. They very well may, but I don't know what they're there for. And if you keep going around, you've even got Ohio State currently number 1 in every poll possible.
Yeah.
And you've still got fans up there that swear that Ryan Day is coaching for his job when they play Michigan. How? What? Are you kidding me? Like, I don't understand where some of these rumors come from or how they get started. And then you see all the respondents to them, and people treat it as fact, which, almost says a little too much about the current state of our society more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we ran into in my day job, I ran into this where I've been in situations where someone has said, well, I saw a video online that said, and I look at them like, I've done a story on that. That is 100% false. But I read it. And the problem is, if you're not there there's only a few of us who actually do this, right? So if you're not there to say, no, that's not the case, somebody else takes that fact or that conversation to the next day to the office and says, well, a friend of mine saw a video that said, and then somebody, well, a guy at work, he knows this guy who heard that. I mean, it's just, and it's like it is a horrible game of telephone to your point. Yeah. And the thing is, it is all out there. Here's the thing. WNBA this summer, I'm flying to Atlanta, right, to do the show that night. And there was one guy at the airport who watches me every night on the news and also watches WNBA Friday nights on Ion. And so he would always walk up. He would get excited. He was a gate agent there, and he'd want to get in a conversation. And he says, well, I hate what the media is doing it with Angel Reese. And I said, okay, well, what are you hearing? Well, I read on social media. Okay, well, there's the first problem. You're confusing social media with media, and they're two different things. I pointed to a random guy. I said, what you're saying is that guy sitting right there in the end of the bench said Angel Reese sucks. And then you read what he says, and then everyone else goes, oh my God, you heard the media said? They said Angel Reese. The media never said that. It's one man's opinion. Right. Because it's out where you can get it, and all of a sudden it becomes, and so yeah, it's great. To your point though, here's how bad, it's always been like this. It's just much worse now because of social media. Years ago, I think at the end maybe of Lou Henson's tenure, the Hall of Fame coach at Illinois, there was this rumor, this urban legend still that exists, that Mike Krzyzewski, who's from Chicago, had bought land near Champaign and therefore was in secret talks to be the next coach. And I don't recall at what point this was. I could have the date wrong. But again, Krzyzewski went on to coach several years at Duke, was never probably leaving, I'm sure. But it became, and so to this day, it's still a joke. If you mention, hey, Mike Krzyzewski bought some land in Muhammad, right? I mean, it's still a joke, to this day. So yeah, it is, like you said, fans, they go crazy, and you want to say, just take a deep breath. It's okay. Everyone wants to be that person to say, I told you so.
Right. Well, again, it comes down to, if you really want to trust something, if you really want to know if something's true or false, whether it be sports, news, whatever, go to the main sources.
Yeah.
Go, don't read message boards, read ESPN, watch ESPN. Yeah, they're going to start some rumors, but they're going to let you know this is a rumor. This is a rumor or not facts. Rumor are different from facts. But they're going to give you the whole story. Wherever you get your news from, don't get it from strictly social media. Get it from credible news sources that you can back up. Larry, we had a story back at CNN once upon a time. One of our insiders said, I can tell you for a fact that Notre Dame's calling a press conference. This is before social media on Thursday, announcing Lou Holtz, and gave it to me. And I went to our bosses. And they said, that's great. I need a second source.
Yeah.
And we did not go with it 48 hours before it was going to happen.
Yep.
We sat on it because we could not get that second source. The second source meant everything. And it should still be that way for anybody who's reading news or sports and wants to know the truth. If somebody has verified something with two sources, you're good. If they haven't, it's just a rumor.
Yeah, I had the same thing when Marv Levy was going to retire from the Bills. I had it good 24 hours, 48 hours ahead of time. The same. It was right before New Year's. Could not get a second source. We did not run it. 2 days later, I'm in Pasadena with my wife, about to go to the Rose Parade. I grabbed the paper and see where yesterday ESPN announced that Marv Levy is stepping down. I mean, I even had the owner, the late Ralph Wilson, on his plane from Manalapan, Florida, up to Buffalo for the announcement. We had all that, but I could not get a second source. You're exactly right. And I think the litmus test, if you're just wondering, okay, who to trust, whatever, check and see, can this source be sued for libel? And that's your, I tell people all the time, I even what we do here, and you know this, we do this all the time. We make sure we say, well, I've heard, I believe, or if it's fact, or we give a source. I tell people I can be sued. In my day job, I can be sued if I give you false information. So this, I don't know, little nugget there, but deep breath, people. We got a long way to go. All right, moment of all is up next.
Are you tired of your website making your business look bad? Is your current web developer dropping the ball? Let's face it, if your website isn't making you money, it's broken. Let Neon Rain create a website that turns your visitors into customers. Neon Rain has worked with hundreds of businesses across North America, building custom websites and applications with modern designs that are easy to update and work well on mobile devices. They can do it for you too. What sets Neon Rain apart? They actually deliver on their promises. Call today for a free consultation. 303-957-3092. That's Neon Rain at 303-957-3092. Or visit them at neonrain.com.
Okay, time now for a moment of awe. And it's a moment of, First big deal of the Major League Baseball offseason, and the Orioles sending young pitcher Grayson Rodriguez to the Angels in exchange for outfielder Taylor Ward. Now, they need some offense, and he's coming off a career-high 36 homers last year. He's 31 years old. But Grayson Rodriguez is a potential ace for your staff. And listen, your season in 2025 went south because of pitching, right? I mean, you're going to expect it to contend for the playoffs again. That never happened. I know Rodriguez missed the season with injuries and all that, but he's young. He's 20-8 in his career, an ERA around 4. He's a year away from arbitration, so you still have him on the cheap. Do you really make this move now when you really need pitching? And it's so hard to come by. Look, producer Tony said he's an Oriole fan, and he's really concerned about this. I'm concerned as well. Kind of a moment of what to finish off this Wednesday. All right. Thanks to our guests stopping by. We appreciate you as well. It's a Sports IQ. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.